So about 2 years ago I played Cyberpunk for the first time and I had a great time playing it. Of course, we all know how bad of a launch it had in 2020, and it seemed like a lot of people wanted to wait until after it had been improved to give it a shot, including me. I also moved to PC, so that was another reason, and then since then I've also moved to another PC which is even better, so I thought, why not test it out by playing one of the best looking and most expansive games yet, as well as them doing even more improvements to this day and updates since then. So let's jump right into Cyberpunk in 2025. So starting with the gameplay, which has a lot to it to even mention, even from the very beginning where you customize your character, it's definitely one of, if not the most in-depth character customizations I've ever seen. So I won't list everything you can adjust, but as you can see from the gameplay, there's a lot to work with. I took a good 20-25 minutes or so building my character, who I'm going to play as throughout the whole game, so you do take time with it. But saying that, you can come back and edit it later on. Of course, the game is set in the future, so accessories, hairstyles, the colours, cyberware, etc. that's all promoted in the game with a lot of, unique colours and looks to them, not just the appearance but the changes you make in the attributes as well. And that's when it's going to start affecting your gameplay by altering body, intelligence, reflexes, technical ability, and then cool to suit your playstyle. By adding or taking away different skill levels of each one, you can increase things like speed, health, detection, and etc. depending on how you want to play the game, so there's a lot to it. And then adding on to that, you can upgrade your combat and gameplay even more with the skill tree system, with the points you gain from playing, so you can choose different perks to improve your fighting, hacking, defending, and stealth. Another option is choosing from the 3 different life paths, so there's Corpo, Nomad, and Street Kid, to also suit your playstyle. They won't significantly change the playthrough of the game, just adding small features like optional dialogue options, for example, around your chosen life path, or like a side job to then unlock more stuff, and your default outfit as well, which I'm sure you'll just change later on anyway. With all this customization, the game has a lot of replayability to it, and then experimentation with just combat, where you can easily choose and alter the way you want to play so it doesn't become repetitive, which I liked. And then adding on to this, there's a giant selection of weapons to choose from, and it's not only the character, you can also add perks to different categories of weapons in the designated sections, such as upgrading your melees, your rifles, your handguns. Even without adding the perks, the variety of weapons is endless, and they all have their own category of tech, power, and smart. So the tech weapons use railgun technology, which fires projectiles, and then power weapons will deflect bullets off objects, and then smart weapons have auto target. I must say, the handling of the weapons feels very immersive and much more realistic in the sense that it's not so smooth. It actually feels like it has weight to the weapon when you hold it, and then some guns having more recoil and pullback, which is seen clearly in the gun animations, just adding on to that, satisfaction when using each one and showing how much detail they put into every one. The same goes with the reload animations as well, you can't forget that. It's also followed by the various hacks you can perform, so the list is basically endless and can be experimented with a lot. So one of the common ones being Breach Protocol, which is pre-installed on every cyber deck, and you can penetrate networks and basically infiltrate all enemies in that surrounding area and their devices. Other ones being Memory Wipe, Sonic Shock, Overheat, for example, just to name a few. And all of these are in different categories of stealth, combat and control and ultimate. Apart from the pre-installed ones, they will cost RAM, which can be collected. More RAM can be used to upgrade a hack even more. The use of cyberware mods can be added and upgraded to your character as well, so that helps a lot with the gameplay, like various mantis blades can be installed onto your arms, or like rotors to increase some attack speed. Also, smaller abilities like enhanced vision or synaptic accelerator. There's a lot to it, I know. If I can, I'll put the entire list on the screen. As I mentioned, there's tons of clothing options and outfits to buy as you progress through the game, which can always be changed in your own wardrobe or in mirrors. The armor does help with combat, of course, in terms of health, but it takes away from your look, which wasn't really a big deal since it's first person most of the time. It's only when looking in mirrors or on your bike you'll see your outfit. And then this also brings me to the vehicles and the driving mechanics, which do feel very smooth and easy to handle, meaning I could drift and turn quickly in lots of areas of the city without crashing for the most part, which does make it fun. I don't really have any complaints in terms of the mechanics. Driving was quite satisfying again. It's so fun to weave in and out of the traffic, just like in GTA. In terms of bugs in combat and gameplay, I really didn't encounter any, or that many at least. No more than any other big RPG game, I guess, and nothing that really took away from the immersion. I know this was a huge problem at launch with so many game-breaking glitches, which I'm so glad aren't there anymore. From what I've heard, the same goes with console as well, which is good to hear. Now, I'm going to move on to the story of Cyberpunk 2077. So the main protagonist of the game goes by V, and as I mentioned, you can fully customize their look and choose their life path. It doesn't drastically affect the story in any way, mainly just gameplay options and extra dialogue. To be honest, it was a slight shame, as you'd think there'd be a huge difference, but as I listed, there's not really much change. It was still a nice touch, I suppose. It does mean there are different small intros for the game. I personally chose Street Kid, where V is basically ordered to perform a job that starts off the game. And then just throughout the game, there are tons of side characters you meet, and they all have unique and detailed personalities, which I'm glad about. The side characters, they do add an awful lot to the game, so it's important that they do have an engaging persona. Even in their, the in-depth outfit design, the hairstyles, the tattoos. It just brings out so much life in their character and just separates them all. I really don't have one that I'd say is dull or lackluster. And some of the major side characters would be Judy, Jackie, Dexter, T-Bug, Panam, and so many others, to be honest. They all have their own backstories to learn about, with engaging side activities and branches to the main quest line. And they're 100% worth checking out. They do add a huge amount to an already in-depth main story. You can get lost in the side story arcs and the missions you come across in the world. These include extra quest lines that are actually fun and not repetitive. There's so much more to learn about and get that extra engagement of with random characters, and some of them you don't even see at all in the main quest line. The problems not only V will face, but also you learn about the other characters' struggles as well, and then there's some cool conspiracy theories and lots more. Not to forget an incredibly important part of the story, Johnny Silverhand, who's in V's head for the majority of the game. The only time he isn't is in the prologue, which is in-depth in itself, and it really grips you into the game, even if it is a bit lengthy. I believe this was sort of needed to set the foundation of the narrative, and just help understand what's going on, and that's when you meet Johnny Silverhand, who is of course played by the one and only Keanu Reeves. He follows everything V does because he's actually dead and doesn't exist, meaning he's only inside her head. He adds so much to the story, and I really enjoyed his character just as much as the other side characters. Probably the best part about him is his character development. You just see it as it progresses through the game, so from his relationship with V to his own mindset, and then from customizing V, choosing dialogue options, adding perks, mods, upgrades, everything, and choosing your own life path. All of these features, they layer on top of each other, and it feels very independent to you when you play through the game and the story, as if you are V and you are the main character of the game. They did this incredibly well, and it's one of the biggest strengths of the narrative. The same goes for the ending as well. There's various endings to the game rather than just one, which I had a feeling would happen from how much, selection there already is before that. It definitely adds to the replayability again. And lastly, I want to talk about the world of Cyberpunk. If you couldn't tell from the gameplay already, the world and the map is, funny enough, set in 2077, meaning it follows this futuristic yet sort of dark, sci-fi-esque theme, taking place in Night City, found on the west coast of America. And it serves as the backdrop for pretty much the whole story. It's honestly giant and, as I expected, densely populated with very sort of urban landscaping, sectioned into several districts as well, each having its own tone to them and personality. This can be the luxury, high-end skyscraper areas or the slums and the wastelands. The streets are always, bustling with people everywhere you look, which enhances that, immersion and just emphasises how the game feels so alive and real all the time. Even from the teasers and the trailers, I'm sure everyone else knew the world was going to look incredible and be a big part of the game. And just before playing it, I couldn't wait to see this, vibrant, colourful gameplay of the city, which for sure held up in the actual game, I would say. and I can't believe how much detail went into creating this whole setting. The best part has to be just driving through it, and especially at night as well. And even better when it's raining. The reflections and, you know, the illumination of the whole area, because there's a lot of like glow off the side of buildings, because there's a bunch of futuristic billboards and advertisements. It just feels like a GTA or a Watch Dogs, but just immensely upgraded. The gameplay you're seeing has pretty much max graphics with ray tracing on, and it looks incredible, and it ran great as well, which I will get back to. And just to, you know, speak on the world a bit more, it's basically dominated by mega corporations that control the society. So there's a lot of like politics, technology, resources that they cover, basically they own, which means they all have high power and influence, working in sort of shady ways to stay at the top. And with the world being set, you know, 50 years from now, there's very advanced technology and just cybernetic enhancements that are common throughout the world. As I mentioned, everyone modifies their body with cyberware to improve physical but also the mental abilities. One of the biggest problems in the city is crime, of course. It's filled with street gangs, criminal organisations, all looking for, you know, control over it all and resources. They play a very important role in the story. So there's like certain areas in the game with no laws, and it's like a combat zone. A lot of, you know, dangerous activity, as you'd imagine, and all this just builds on to that immersion and just feels like a real world. There's also like litter flying everywhere on the sidewalks in some places. It just, yeah, it highlights like the messy side of the city. Going back to like the futuristic billboards and the holographic signs, the flying vehicles. Overall, the night city just looks incredible and was very fun to experience. It does feel like you're actually in the world, fully immersed in it. And then outside the city, it's quite the opposite. Pretty much nothing at all, which I suppose is realistic. You have like the hustle and bustle of the cities, and then the quiet wastelands beyond them. It would have been nice to see a bit more life outside the urban areas. As I said, the game holds up on PC and feels quite smooth with high graphics. As for consoles, I'm not overly sure because I didn't play it, but I'm aware it has been immensely improved as well. Overall, on PC with max graphics and ray tracing, it held up a lot better than I expected. I rarely noticed any bugs or glitches, maybe just like, you know, the rendering not being as smooth when you drive fast. But apart from that, no complaints really. I'm glad they've improved it. And I think that's everything I have to say about Cyberpunk 2077 in the year 2025. If you did enjoy this video, then let me know by tapping that like button down below. And if you enjoy single player and multiplayer games as well, then that's what this channel does focus on. I have multiple playlists on a selection of games, so you can subscribe to the channel if you'd like to. And if you want to support me any further, then you can become a member of the channel at either level 1 or 2 to gain access to various perks. Thank you all for the support. And in terms of like, if I recommend the game, I think it's obvious by now, I definitely do recommend it. I mean, it's been 5 years since the very rough launch it had, and even so, I still don't think that's really an excuse. Even if it was a bit buggy, I still think it's worth it. You've probably, you know, gathered an idea of if you want to play it from this review, hopefully. And that was Cyberpunk in 2025.